You need to move along, sir. This line is for private clients. That's what the bank manager said, flat firm, with just enough volume to turn heads. It was 10:04 a.m. on a cool Friday in Charleston. Inside Piedmont National Bank's executive branch, the mahogany-paneled lobby smelled of fresh polish and old money. The chairs were leather. The coffee was imported, and the front desk was manned like a checkpoint. The man who had just stepped forward, slow, steady, clean, didn't look like the others waiting there. Dark brown slacks, crisp white shirt, gray cardigan, skin weathered by age and sun. A soft limp in his left leg. No cufflinks. No watch. Just a gold-plated pen clipped to his breast pocket and a military tag that peeked out when he leaned over. His name was Franklin Moses, 75 years old. A retired Green Beret colonel, Vietnam vet, and quietly, the founder of one of the fastest-growing black-owned investment firms on the East Coast, Moses Holdings. But to the manager, he looked like someone lost. "Sir," the man repeated, impatient now, "this is for scheduled account holders. The public entrance is down the hall." Franklin looked up slowly, his voice low and even. "I'm not here for public banking. I have an appointment with Ellis Grant." The manager, white mid-30s, slicked back hair, a name tag that read T. Burnham, Senior Associate VP, gave a tight, condescending smile. "And who are you representing today, mister?" He glanced at the check-in tablet, frowned. No assistant, no listed appointment, no badge. Franklin didn't flinch. "I represent myself. I'm Franklin Moses." Burnham blinked, then smirked. "Ah, a walk-in hoping to meet our CIO. Sir, I don't care what you've read online. This isn't that kind of bank." "Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been told, without them saying it, that you weren't worth the space you were standing in? Have you ever earned your way into the kind of room they say is invite only, just to watch a man half your age act like you don't belong? If you've worn the uniform, paid the bills, buried your friends, lived longer than some of these suits have been alive, then this story is for you. And what happened next? You'll never forget it." Franklin nodded once, took a step back. "I see," he said calmly. "I'll wait here." "No," Burnham replied. "You'll wait out there. We don't allow unauthorized loitering in the client area. Security's watching already." Two men by the entrance, both in suit jackets, shifted slightly. Franklin's hands stayed at his sides. Still, relaxed. But his eyes, they narrowed. The same eyes that had once stared down gun barrels and generals. Eyes that didn't blink when a helicopter was going down. That didn't soften when 3 banks turned down his first loan because of his zip code in '84. Now, they were being ignored again, like none of it ever happened. Just then, a young teller, maybe mid-20s Latino, name tag said E. Salgado, leaned forward from his desk and froze. "Sir," he said, hushed, "did you say Franklin Moses?" Burnham waved a hand. "Please don't engage." But Salgado ignored him. He stood up. "Mr. Moses, I interned for your firm last summer." Franklin turned. "I know exactly who you are, sir," Salgado said. "You gave the keynote at the Carolina Veterans Forum. You were awarded Businessman of the Year last fall." Burnham's smirk faded. So did the color in his face. Franklin gave a half-smile. "You were the intern who redesigned our on-site proposal app." "Yes, sir." Burnham snapped, "Can we not?" But Franklin stepped forward now. Calm, tall, in command. "Mr. Burnham," he said, "you just dismissed a client with $11 million in active accounts. You insulted a decorated veteran. And you told me to leave my own bank." Burnham stammered, "I didn't know." "I didn't expect you to," Franklin said. "That's the problem." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a leather portfolio. Inside, Piedmont National Bank shareholder authorization papers, signed and notarized. He laid them on the counter. "I'm not just a client. I'm part of the board that reviews regional performance. And what I just witnessed is a performance review you won't recover from." The room was silent. Salgado stood frozen. The other security guard, now realizing who he was, slowly backed off. Burnham opened his mouth, closed it. Franklin picked up his papers, nodded politely, and turned. "Tell Mr. Grant I'll be waiting in the conference room. If anyone asks why I'm early." He looked back. "Tell them I got here right on time." You just didn't recognize me." The conference room on the third floor was nothing special. Long mahogany table, a row of water bottles, 2 digital screens mounted on the wall showing the bank's logo in soft blue. At 10:41 a.m., Ellis Grant, Piedmont's chief investment officer, walked in looking tense. White mid-50s, polished, Harvard-educated, a man used to managing hedge clients and oil executives, not war veterans with a pen in their pocket. He extended a hand across the table. "Mr. Moses," he said, "it's been a while." Franklin shook it, firm and polite. 5 years last quarter. I was in this room the day your board approved the Carolina expansion." Ellis smiled faintly. "And now you've returned under tense circumstances." Franklin didn't blink. "No, I've returned under repeated circumstances." He slid a folder across the table. Inside, 13 incident summaries from the last 8 years. All involving elderly black clients, veterans, and retirees. All involving this exact branch. All resolved internally. Ellis flipped through them slowly. "Where did you get these?" Franklin raised an eyebrow. "2 of your former tellers work for me now." They'd had enough. There was a long pause. Then Ellis leaned back, face stiff. "Let me guess, you're here to demand Burnham's termination." Franklin shook his head. "I'm here to recommend it." Another pause. Ellis folded his hands. "And if we resist?" Franklin looked him in the eye. Then said, "Then I initiate a full stakeholder review of this region's cultural compliance record. I pull my $11 million in accounts. I transfer my retirement firm's pension fund elsewhere. And I send your board a letter signed by every veteran in my network who's ever been refused basic dignity in this lobby." He leaned forward. "That's 1,400 men. Some walk with canes. Some have 3 Purple Hearts. None of them should have to prove they belong." Ellis said nothing. Franklin took a breath, then added, quieter now, "You know I didn't ask to be served first. I didn't ask for red carpet. I asked for decency." He looked down at his hands. "They told me back in '72, when I came home from Nam, that we'd come a long way. That black soldiers would be treated differently now." He paused. "And yet I was called boy by a teller in 1986 when I tried to open my first business account. Told to use the other line in 2001 when I was trying to deposit a down payment. And yesterday—" He looked up. "Yesterday, a man who can't spell Tet offensive tried to walk me out of my own branch." Ellis didn't interrupt. He couldn't. The silence was heavier than any rebuke. Franklin stood, gathered his papers. "I'll return at noon. You'll have made your decision by then." At 12:03, he walked back into the room. Ellis stood waiting. "Burnham's contract has been terminated." Franklin nodded once, but Ellis added something unexpected. "Mr. Moses, may I ask something?" Franklin gestured. "Go on. You served this country. Then you built something most of us only read about. Why still fight these battles?" Franklin walked to the window, looked down at the street below. Slow traffic, retired men in their 70s lining up outside the post office, same faces that get overlooked every day. "Because I didn't fight for a flag," he said. "I fought for promise. And every time someone gets turned away because they don't look the part, that promise breaks again." He turned. "I've been patient long enough." That afternoon, Franklin met with the bank's HR division, not to fire more people, but to build something better. He offered to fund a pilot program, free training for every teller in the state on how to treat elders, veterans, and people who don't fit the private client mold. The condition? I sit on the hiring panel, and I pick the first branch manager myself. But even as the policy changed, something else was rising. Because that security footage, it leaked. Someone inside the bank, maybe Salgado, maybe not, uploaded the silent clip of Franklin being motioned to the door. Within hours, it went viral on veteran Facebook groups. Then Twitter. Then cable news. The headline? Black veteran CEO told to leave his own bank. His response? Fire. Reform. Dignity. At 5:02 p.m., Franklin's phone rang. An old number. He answered, slow smile forming. "Colonel Moses," a voice said. "I don't know if you remember me. We served together back in Saigon." Franklin chuckled. Hard to forget a man who snored louder than artillery. The voice softened. I saw the clip. We've all seen it. You didn't just stand up for you. You stood up for us. Franklin hung up the phone and sat alone in the office. No cheers. No cameras. Just a quiet breath. A victory not for ego, but for legacy. And still something in him said, "This isn't the last time I'll be underestimated." The invitation came 3 days after the footage went viral. A simple envelope, heavy paper, official letterhead. The Committee on Veterans Financial Equity requests your attendance in Washington, D.C. to discuss best practices for elder veteran inclusion in private financial systems. Franklin almost didn't go. He'd seen these kinds of summits before, polite panels, soft muffins, and the same empty promises that vanished by the next fiscal quarter. But something in him said, show up anyway. If not for himself, then for the thousands of veterans whose names never made headlines, who'd been disrespected in quiet rooms and told to move along, again and again, for decades. So he packed a suit and his old service boots. By Thursday, Franklin was seated in the Capitol building, third row of a modest hearing chamber. 5 senators on the panel, 2 of them veterans, one nodding to him respectfully. The rest, you could tell they were scanning him the same way Burnham did back at the bank. Too quiet. Too old, too black to have that kind of authority. Maybe here for optics. One of the panel aides handed him a pre-typed card. Please keep your remarks under 5 minutes. You'll be the third speaker. Franklin smiled at the kid, took the card, folded it once, then slid it into his coat pocket. He hadn't come here to follow scripts. The first speaker, a representative from a private banking lobby, gave a long, sanitized pitch about equity awareness and retirement pathways. The second speaker, a well-groomed nonprofit rep, thanked everyone for their ongoing dedication to justice. Then Franklin stood. No papers, no PowerPoint, just his voice. My name is Franklin Moses. I'm 75 years old. I served 2 tours in Vietnam, 1 in Panama. And for the last 30 years, I've run a company that invests in veterans and working families. He glanced at the row of aides typing softly. Last week, I walked into a bank that holds $11 million of my money. The manager asked me to leave. He thought I didn't belong. He thought I was lost. He paused. But I wasn't lost. He was lost in a system that never taught him how to recognize dignity when it isn't wearing a $5,000 suit. One senator shifted, uncomfortable. Franklin leaned on the lectern. I'm not angry. I've lived too long to waste energy on anger. But I am tired. Tired of teaching the same lesson every decade. We served this country. We built your cities. We paid taxes when we barely had food. And now you hand out equity seminars while your banks still treat our presence like a mistake. Silence. No shuffling now. Just heads lifting. You don't need a task force. You need a mirror. Look at the system you built and ask yourselves, would I want my father treated this way? My brother? My pastor? My sergeant? He tapped the microphone softly. I've got grandkids now, and I'll be damned if I let them inherit a world where their worth is judged by their shoes and their silence. The room didn't erupt. It rose. Slowly. One senator clapped, then another, then the whole chamber. Even the staffers stood. The committee chair, a Marine veteran himself, walked over and said, Mr. Moses, that wasn't a speech. That was a mission briefing, and I believe every word of it. That night, the clip aired on PBS and CNN. By morning, veteran organizations from 41 states had contacted Moses Holdings asking for financial literacy materials, training guides, even policy templates. The Army Times called him the voice the VA forgot to hear. The National Credit Union Association offered him a consulting role. But Franklin, he didn't want titles. He wanted change. The day after he returned to Charleston, he hosted an open forum at his community office. No suits, no podium, just folding chairs and hot coffee. He invited 35 local veterans and retirees to speak freely. Stories poured out. One man hadn't had a bank account in 12 years. Another had been talked down to at an ATM when he forgot his PIN. An elderly black woman cried, said she'd been told last week her checks had to be verified with a manager because she didn't look like someone who could write 4 digits. Franklin listened, then stood. This doesn't stop with me, he said. This starts with us. He made a vow. By the end of this year, we're going to open something they can't ignore, a financial center run by veterans for veterans. No profile questions. No suit test. Just dignity at the front desk. By September, the blueprint was real. The Dignity Bank. That's what they called it. A new pilot branch, small, clean, quiet, with ex-military tellers, counselors, and trainers behind every desk. No credit score fearmongering. No appointment games. No private client only signs at the door. Just service. Straight and honest. Franklin leased a small brick building on the west side of Charleston. Painted it soft gray. Hung an American flag above the door. And beneath it a smaller banner. Built by those who served. For those who were overlooked. They opened quietly. First week, 30 walk-ins. Second week, over 100. By October, they had over 300 accounts and 6 pending business loans, all to veterans or elderly black homeowners who had been rejected by legacy banks. The local news called it Charleston's most human bank. But not everyone liked the change. Piedmont National, the same bank that threw Franklin out, started to feel the shift. They lost 5 major accounts in 6 weeks. Retired police unions and veterans groups started moving their funds. And suddenly, Franklin got a letter. Cease and desist. Piedmont accused Dignity Bank of using language that implied their competitors were undignified or discriminatory. It was absurd, but was strategic. Old power doesn't fight fair, it fights legal. They wanted to drag him into paperwork. Exhaust him. Bury the momentum in red tape. Franklin's attorney advised caution. You could settle Franklin. Change the name. Call it Unity Financial or something softer. Franklin looked him in the eye, then said, "When I was 23 years old, pinned down in a jungle, I didn't crawl because someone yelled at me from a tower. We keep the name." The same week, the city council announced a new contract, a $12 million community redevelopment project. Banks could bid to provide the financial services. Piedmont applied. So did Franklin. But quietly behind closed doors, pressure mounted. Rumors swirled that Franklin's bid would be too controversial, too new, too unproven. A week before the decision, Franklin received a visit. Not from a politician, but from Carter Renner, Piedmont's southeastern director. Tailored suit, soft voice, fake warmth. He asked to meet the old bank building, the same one where Burnham had tried to throw Franklin out. They sat across the same conference table. Carter smiled. "Mr. Moses, let's cut to it. Your institution has noble roots. But this contract is about scale. Stability. Your model, it's not ready." Franklin didn't flinch. "That's so." Carter leaned in. "We're offering a partnership. We handle the capital. You serve the veterans. You get your mission, and we get the job done." Franklin stood. "You want me to cash in my reputation so you can launder yours." Carter's smile faded. "You're going to lose." Franklin buttoned his jacket. "I've been losing since 1956, son. Still here. Still standing. And this time, I'm not just standing. I'm marching." The next morning, Franklin made a call to his old comrade, a retired lieutenant colonel turned state legislator. Then another call. Then another. And by Friday, over 200 veterans from across the state had shown up outside City Hall wearing their uniforms, some crisp, some faded, holding signs that read, "We don't want a favor. We want fairness. This man served us. Let him serve others. We trust Dignity Bank." The council's vote went public. Live streamed. Franklin sat in the front row. Silent. Patient. When the final tally came in, 4-3 in favor of Dignity Bank, he didn't cheer. Didn't pump a fist. He simply removed his old army pin from his jacket and handed it to the council chair. "That's for your gavel. So next time someone like me walks in, you'll remember we didn't fight for flags. We fought for access." That night, Carter Renner made one more call, from a private number. "Franklin," he said, "you could have taken the deal. Retired in peace." Franklin's answer? Simple. "I didn't build this for peace. I built this for the next generation's war. One they won't have to fight in a tie." It had been 6 months since the first door was closed in his face. Since that moment when Franklin Moses stood in a high-rise lobby, treated like a vagrant, told to wait in the rain like some stranger off the street. Now, He stood in a different kind of lobby. The newly built national headquarters of Dignity Bank, 3 stories tall, brick and glass, proudly centered in a historic black business district. There were no client levels. No velvet ropes. No small print disclaimers. Just one brass plaque by the front door. You are welcome here, whoever you are, wherever you came from, however you walk in. On the final Sunday of Veterans Month, Franklin was invited to deliver a keynote address at the National Retirees Coalition, broadcast nationwide on PBS and local radio. He walked out slowly, cane in hand, gray suit pressed, but no medals on his chest. No awards. Just his voice. He looked out at the sea of gray hair, old hats, and weathered faces. And he began. When I came home from Vietnam, my country gave me a handshake, a form letter, and silence. They gave me my folded flag and moved on. And when I tried to open my first account, I was told I didn't qualify. Not because of my credit, but because they didn't believe a man like me could earn money the right way. I didn't shout. I didn't march. I built. He paused. The room was silent. Only coughs and hearts beating. You see, they thought aging meant disappearing. That once we turned 65, we'd be happy to sit in the corner and let the suits talk over us. But what they forgot is that we were raised to listen first. Not because we were timid, but because we knew that when we finally spoke, it would matter. He looked around. Men who had survived wars, built churches, fixed engines, outlived their brothers, and carried names in their wallets like dog tags. Every system built in this country that excludes dignity, Franklin said, was built on the assumption that old men get tired. But I didn't get tired. I got focused. And when that bank manager told me to wait outside, he didn't insult me. He activated me. The crowd shifted. Some stood. One man, cane shaking, whispered, "That's right." Franklin finished like this. To the young man who thinks respect is owed, not earned, you're not wrong. But be ready to earn it anyway, because this world wasn't built to give it to you. To the older man who thinks it's too late to start something new, I was 72 when I founded Dignity Bank. And to every black father, every aging veteran, every invisible worker, they can call you a liability, a risk, a statistic. But you know what I see when I look in the mirror. He paused, soft, still. I see the man they underestimated. And I thank him for standing anyway. The broadcast was viewed by over 2 million people across 6 states. In the months that followed, Dignity Bank opened 3 new locations. Piedmont National rebranded, but couldn't erase what had been done. Franklin turned down a national award from a finance magazine. He didn't need a trophy. He already had one. Every time a retired postal worker walked through his door with their head high. Every time a widow cashed her check without being asked for ID 3 times. Every time a young teller said yes, sir, with pride instead of doubt. And now, I want to speak directly to you, wherever you're listening from. Maybe you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s. Maybe you served. Maybe you didn't. But if you've ever been told you don't belong in a room you helped build, if you've ever watched your years of work dismissed by someone half your age and twice your privilege, if you've been patient, quiet, polite, because you thought dignity required silence, let this be the moment you remember something. You are not here by accident. You are not in the way. You are the way. If this story spoke to you, speech balloon, tell us where you're listening from. Loudspeaker, share it with a friend who still walks into places holding his breath. Bellhop bell and subscribe if you believe respect isn't a privilege, it's a right earned over time. And the next time someone tells you, this isn't your place, you look them in the eye and say, son, this place exists because men like me didn't leave when they told us to.